Have you ever seen or heard of one of these inspiring stories that seem to be impossible, where truth is stranger than fiction? I recently heard a story about a man who was in a sporting accident and was paralyzed from the neck down. And he was told by doctors and professionals that he would never walk again. And so basically, all he could do was just lay in his bed or sit in his chair for hours and days on end. So he decided that he was going to live in his imagination. That if he was, forced to lay and to sit, and he couldn't move or really do anything, he was going to live the fullest life possible in his head. So every day in his head, he would have a routine. He would live his life. He would get up. He would imagine himself getting up, brushing his teeth, combing his hair, putting his clothes on, going out for a walk, walking his dog, doing chores, going to work, fixing up his vehicle or working on the house. He would imagine himself playing tennis and playing basketball, and he would imagine himself doing various things in everyday activities. And every day he would do this. And, his family members would come in and say, "Hey, what have you been doing today?" He says, "Oh, you won't believe I climbed a mountain today." Or, "Oh, I rode my bike today." And, people thought that he was crazy. But slowly and surely, there was improvement. He started to be able to move, his fingers, his toes. He was starting to get feeling back into his extremities. And it was a very slow process. But he noticed that whenever he had these muscle spasms, that he was able to control his limbs during this process of these temporary muscle spasms. So he thought to himself, next time I have a muscle spasm, if I could just put one foot in front of the other, if I could just move one limb at a time, I can walk. So believe it or not, eventually this man was able to walk. And he told his doctors, he goes, "You're going to see me walk out of this hospital one day." And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. Believe it or not, that is exactly what happened. And Proverbs 19:14 says, "A man's spirit sustains him in infirmity, but a broken spirit who can bear?" That's a powerful verse, and that's a very powerful statement. A man's spirit sustains him in his infirmity. This man who was paralyzed from the neck down, his spirit sustained him. He refused to have his spirit broken because he believed that one day he could walk. He figured out some way to walk, though he was told he would never walk and that it was impossible to walk. It says, "A man's spirit sustains him in infirmity, but a broken spirit who can bear?" If this man believed what the doctors told him, and if his spirit was broken, and he just resigned himself to stare at the ceiling laying in his bed or staring at the wall sitting in his wheelchair, he would have never got up and walked. And that's what happens when you have a broken spirit. And we have a generation of people and a generation of children whose spirits have been broken. And as a result of a broken spirit, they have given up. They're apathetic. They say, "Who cares? What does it matter anyway?" And so they live a self-destructive life, believing that they're never going to get out of where they're at. And so they just give in to their desires and to their habits, no matter how miserable it makes them or how destructive it makes them. So that's why it's so important that we, as believers in Messiah Yeshua, believers in Jesus Christ, need to be edifiers and need to build other people up. A man's spirit sustains him in infirmity, but a broken spirit who can bear? It's been scientifically proven that when somebody is encouraged, they can lift more than they can initially lift. They can do more and go further than they can initially. So it's very important that when we see somebody whose face is hanging low or whose shoulders are drooping, to give them an encouraging word, to let them know that you're there for them and that you're willing to be a listening ear, or that you're praying for them, or just to encourage them, just to say an encouraging word, a pat on the back, just to let them know that you notice them and that you notice that they exist, will go a long way and will help build somebody's spirit up. And that's why it's so important for us to be spirit builders instead of those who break the spirit or tear down the spirit. So, guys, go out there today and encourage somebody, love somebody, lift somebody up. You never know what your encouragement will do. You don't know how that it will sustain or to build up their spirit. And maybe your lack of encouragement might be that straw that breaks the camel's back. And it says, a broken spirit who can bear? We want to see people built up, not broken down. So let's go out there and encourage somebody today. Hey, thanks for listening. Go out there and have a great day. God bless. AbrahamsDescendants.com, getting back to the first century in a 21st century way.